What?
And cut. Welcome, everybody. As my sister's drinking her coffee, design meets life. Now, welcome, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for discerning enthusiasts of design, art, infotainment, gossip, and our distinct gift of gabbing, featuring myself, Kelli Ellis, designer, design psychologist, which is like really what I'm excited about today. Just saying, a little teaser.
Exactly,
Here
'cause we're
with,
getting into that.
here with like, I don't know, one of my favorite people on the planet. Yeah.
Certainly the Barcelona planet. Thank you, Mama.
Yeah.
I'm an educator, a reporter. I'm kidding. Educator, reporter, radio host, and this guy that apparently I have a booming
He really
voice.
does. He's got a really incredible voice.
Well,
Come on,
yesterday
let's go.
we'll talk about that in the next hour. But
All right.
every other week or so, because we're finally putting these together.
Yay.
Finally, we've passed our limit that we thought. Every week or so, Kelli and I will bring you news and interviews with some of the fiercest creators, designers, entertainers, breaking down how their life, their design, and their expertise or art. I added that today. Plus, a barrel of laughs can keep some fun and some funk in your world. And Lord knows, especially where we record in the balmy city of Barcelona. It's only balmy today and very humid because I think it's going to inundate with water, don't you think?
I'm actually really happy about that, though.
We
quite
need it.
honestly. Yeah. Well, people say the water, we need it. I mean, I grew up in California, so I've been here. I heard that my whole life.
That's
We
true.
need it. Okay, we need it. Whatever. But what I don't need is humidity. So, okay, let's move on. So anyway, like always, we find the what, the why, and the when, and how they were first aware and why they need to be creative and what this design and creativity and passion has like done for them in their lives and how it brought them through their lives and you know what?
The bringing through their life is going to be really important today when we get
It
to our
is,
boy.
but it's also like I love that we get to hop in and just see where they are right now.
Oh, and you guys are going to love it. If you get to watch this with your eye holes, I really highly recommend it with this episode as well because he's going to be filming in from Hawaii.
Yay.
And he's got some little secrets to share with us. I wasn't really aware of this region of Hawaii and why it's important for cinematic history as well. And so I want to get to that as well.
Well, it's one of my mother's favorite place on the planet. I don't know
never
why.
been.
We're going for New Year's this year.
That's right.
Yeah,
You mentioned that
I'll be
this
in
past
Honolulu.
week.
I'm gonna go see him.
Okay, so we'll make that happen, and he wants to come over here, so we're gonna have to get that
Okay.
at some point. Today, who's gonna be joining us in Design Meets Live? Doctor, psychologist, and writer, author, Dr. Kevin Patterson is joining us live from Hawaii. As I said, he's gonna be talking about an extraordinary therapy journey that he's been on, but now he's propelled this actually to many people around the world. But he focuses his stuff specifically, and a lot obviously has gone remote in the last 5 years because, COVID.
Right.
But most specifically, women and the LGBTQ plus community. So as we celebrate the end of Pride for this month, although here in our city, in our country, actually, they extended through 2 months. It's a June-July thing.
Oh,
in
I
Spain
noticed they
and
kind of
Catalonia.
just blew it up.
Yeah,
All the
in fact-
buildings are rainbow.
As well it should be. And this is one of the things. Before we get to that, I have to give some shout outs as well, Lady K. Yeah. Because one of our guests from a few episodes ago, and again, launching this summer, finally, we just had another brother of ours who had another wonderful honor bestowed upon him because he had just won a few weeks back. Before that, he'd won the best short film at the Sundance Film Festival.
So exciting.
And then our boy, Alex Lora, has just become one of the few members that were inducted. And they don't do it all the time. It's in pockets of years when they do this. And, well, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences just inducted our boy, Alex Lora, to be one of its members, which means he gets to vote in the next Oscars. So I'm going to be bringing an Oscar in the next season on my show because we're going to talk about he can't give away too many things, but he can give tidbits and secrets. So we had to give a mad shout out to Alex Lora.
Very, very excited.
Joining the Academy. He's a member of the Academy.
Which basically means they're going to send him like video after video after video after video, and he gets to watch them all before anyone else, which is also very exciting. Exactly.
No, my dear friends of our family were dear friends with Norman Mailer and his family, and so we would always get these screeners.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody, but we saw it all. It's what happened.
I dated a guy the same thing.
It's a lovely
It was
thing.
great.
Let's speak about dating or not.
No, that's not.
It's not today, but let's talk about mood swings because
Do you have
based
a
on
mood swing?
weather.
Are you on one?
I don't know. The power of Christ compels. But on Luke's Lair today, before we get to Kel's Corner, two things happened which changed the gambit of what I wanted to talk about this week. And does weather I mean, we already know about SAD, the SAD, that
Seasonal affective disorder.
That's the one.
Yes.
And how it affects people specifically up in the northern regions like Scandinavia when you don't have sun for 30 days and then you only have sun for 30 days. But if they can call that sun in Scandinavia. I'm kidding. But the day before yesterday, I was going to meet with another one of our beautiful guests. Shout out Tori Sparks and that incredible dinner with not enough wine the other day. But I'm going over to meet Lady T, and I'm sitting down, jamming to my music. I've been on a really big Frisco disco kick lately. Check it out, children. And this guy comes and sits down. Now, he's definitely Cuban because he had a jerry curl. And
wow. What? But I don't even know why I said anything. I should have just let that go. Okay, so anyway.
Mad shout out to my brother. He is definitely a Latino, and he was sitting down, coming back from work, and he's about to sit down next to me, and this other guy, a Spanish brother, just like knocks him out with his thigh and tries to sit down. As the guy's about to sit down. Like he was sitting down.
In the process of sitting down.
Swinging around with his back to sit down. And the other guy just bumps him over and acts like what? Because he's looking at his phone.
Oh.
He wasn't.
Are we using that as an excuse?
Yep.
Really? Are we using our phones as tools now? Like that?
Tools of destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
They're tools of mass destruction.
They really kind of are. Wow, that's a rant.
TMD. I just created that, Kelly. It's a tool of mass destruction.
I don't know what's going on right now. Well, I'm sure that Kevin will have a lot to say about that.
Definitely, especially as a father. 11:11 on the clock. So this guy says, and they start. Now I immediately get hit by his bag because they start tussling.
So basically, you really like this guy. It's really this is somebody that you want to sit near.
Definitely,
right.
Especially because of the jerry curl.
Right.
And this guy, I get up, and in English, I said to them, I don't know. I stopped the fight that was ensuing, and I said, I am New Jersey out of here. And walked away into the next coach. So then, like I said, I had my Frisco disco jamming, and I hear
no way.
And I turn around, and I don't see them fighting anymore, but the Spanish brother's sitting down, and he's holding his face. And the other guy's walking around, with the macho muchacho attitude.
Adrenaline all pumped.
And he sits down, and he's like shaking his head. And then in the next stop, I'm getting off to go meet Tori, thankfully. And I'm getting off, and the other guy's walking up to him. His face is totally bruised and red. He had punched the guy out straight up.
Wow.
Straight up. And it was not pretty. It was actually horrifying. And then they started to tussle again, and I just got off.
Do you think that he instigated it on purpose? Because that people used to do that all the time, that they would be like, they're just so angry.
The Spanish guy was in his 50s or 60. And this other gentleman, the other guy who was minding his own business till that happened, was maybe 25 to 35.
Okay, who got hit? I'm confused.
The one who tried to sit down the Spanish guy. So Jerry Curl hit the older Spanish guy who tried to take his seat.
Oh, well, he'll never do that again, will he?
So yesterday, I'm walking down the street watching people go by. And again, I was walking over had lunch with Grandma. And that one, we have to record there. And
oh, yeah.
I kept seeing out the reflection that there was, I thought it was my reflection on the glass next to the building that I was walking next to.
That's not me.
And I see that there is a man who's pretty much breathing down my neck. I'm within maybe 1/3 of a meter. So half.
Close talker?
Yeah. So I move away and I said, walk on, again in English. I don't know why I've been doing this. Walk on, please.
I do it too when I'm annoyed. It's
walk
in English.
on, please. And he said, fuck you. Excuse me. I didn't mean to say that. Excuse me. But he said, F you, mother effer. And I said, excuse me, mother.
We're going to have to beep that.
And so Brooklyn came out.
Notes, we're going to have to beep that out. Beep.
I think one might be allowed, but certainly on YouTube.
Really?
And on the podcast, we can do whatever we want. But we're not. But I don't want to be speaking as such. So I do apologize to the audience. But I could not believe that this man I just said, please pack by. And he flipped on it. Now, his voice was completely, it sounded North American.
Okay.
And I said that back to him. And he said, you are crazy and rude. And you need to mind your personal space. My personal space, please, or your own.
Yeah.
And the man said.
What did he say?
He repeated
he on
the
his
expletives
phone?
from before. He had been texting on his phone.
Of course.
But he repeated the expletives from before. And I said, okay, God bless you. Vote blue no matter who. And he turned around. I'm not from your disgusting country. He was obviously a member of my community. And he said, I'm from Holland. And I said, the original leaders of slavery in my country. Bye.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You went on a history rant too.
You already know I'm an historian.
Your rants.
I had to
have to
include-
weave in some history.
You have to learn something. 1619 project. And
I can't.
and I said, walk on, mother. And then he just kept on walking
Okay,
on.
Kevin, if you're listening, I know you have a lot of things to say.
Yes.
Our friend here needs a little bit of talking off a cliff.
Talking off a historical cliff. Now, I have spoken up too much. And Kevin, you're probably right there waiting for us.
Oh, yeah, he is. I'm sure he is. And he's thinking, oh, poor Lucas. I need to have a little session
Right
with
there
him.
waiting for us like Eric Carmen. But what about Kelly's Corner? Quickly.
I don't think we have time for Kelly's Corner now. It's okay.
But the story, we're going to talk about this more.
We're gonna weave it in. Kelly's Corner is gonna be
Kevin, are you there?
Kevin's gonna be here going, what's wrong with this guy?
Is Dr. Kevin Patterson there by any chance? Not
Hey, you know
yet.
what? I think
Okay.
I've just decided that you and I need to switch places from now on.
Okay.
You know why?
No, I don't.
Because your natural inclination is to put this arm down, and this is where you like to be, and you're facing that way half the time.
See, guys, she's designing her life
I'm designing
for me.
us, and I'm
Thank you.
switching us.
And thinking about it. I have not thought about that, but thank you. We'll for the next recording.
No, it's your natural body language. Of course,
It
we're not going to
is.
get up right now, but
It
like
is.
you
want to switch off? You guys, we know how to switch.
Wow. This is going. This is going exactly where I want it to go.
Exactly.
Is what this is doing.
Well,
yeah.
well, Dr. K is still joining
Okay.
and hooking up with us.
So let's just talk about
Really quickly, please.
why do we feel the need to yell at people in English? Like it's the first go-to. So we just had San Juan here.
Oh, Lord.
And it's a terrible experience for my animals. Like my dog, it's basically 4th of July times 100. It's craziness outside. People are
Millions on the beach.
Million-
Millions. At least 1 to 2.
but people and fireworks. So each person's got, I don't know, a box of fire. It's like the old days when we were kids where you could buy
It
fireworks
is
anywhere.
the 80s, yeah.
No, it's nuts. So my dog is just so nervous. She's spinning around in circles. It's terrible.
Which one?
Lily. She's so upset.
So Lucy Lou.
Lucy's like, meh. Lily, not a happy camper. She's like, she has to save her mom and her sister from what's about to happen, right? So she's just running in circles, the poor dear. And so I went to the vet. I got her something. Like I had to drug her up. We had a quiet night, boxed ourselves in. The following night, somebody had leftovers, clearly. So the following night, right outside my window, idiots down on the street. I call them idiots. I don't know who they are. I don't care. I'm yelling. I'm yelling in English. Get a job! Do something else.
She turns into grandma.
I did. I turned into the old lady up there, and they're probably looking at me like this little white-haired lady with the glasses and 2 dogs screaming at us from the balcony. I became the old lady on the balcony.
But the other thing that was, and I know Dr. K, you're there, yes, but we also had the Formula One here in the middle of the city during the same time, and it was real.
It was real.
Oh my God, Dr. Kevin Patterson, are you there, sir?
I am.
Hey!
We need
Hello.
you.
Here we
How are
need
you?
you.
We're
sir.
creative. We need you.
Can you hear us?
Listen, I heard
Okay.
the whole conversation about dogs and fireworks, and I was totally resonating with every second of it. So
Right? It
Yeah.
was terrible. It was
I've already got
terrible.
my dogs pre-sedated, we're good to go.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for 4th of July,
4th
right?
of July's coming up.
Oh yeah, 4th of July.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be in Honolulu for New Year's.
You
Yes.
are? Oh my gosh. Have you been before?
No. I'm excited.
You're gonna love it.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
My,
So I'm
my whole
happy to give
family's
you
coming.
lots of recommendations.
Please do. My whole
Cool.
family's going to be there. It's my mother's favorite place on the planet. We don't know why. We'll have to analyze her on that too. She doesn't like a beach, but she loves Honolulu. So we don't know. It's past life something. I don't
It
know.
is a past life something. I also
Okay.
think that a perfect a present life psychologist is here. And
Yes.
I had been ranting just before the dog story about
ranting.
people that have just gone berserk recently as the temperatures have changed. And obviously we know about seasonal affective disorder, but there's a lot of fighting, like fist fighting. And this guy that a member of our community who really got into my personal space yesterday, and I asked him to please walk by. And he flipped the script and went berserk with cursing and expletives. He had a North American accent, so I presumed,
But-
and I just said, "Vote blue."
I have a question. I mean,
Please.
I have an observation, and I know you're going to have something to say about this. Both incidents, the perpetrators, were on their phone, completely distracted.
This is true.
So, I think there's a lot to be said about the phone these days and the distraction and the level of courtesy, maybe. So, well, I'm going to turn that over.
I
Yeah.
thoroughly agree with you.
Can we call them tools of mass destruction? It's a new word I've
Well-
invented, so it's a new phrase. Yeah.
And it's true. It just is, and it's affecting like every generation differently. That we're just so glued to our phones that we're forgetting to connect in real life. And like Lucas, I've got 2 kids, and they're just always on their phone. And in fact, I never thought I would see the day that honestly the biggest punishment in our household is to turn the Wi-Fi off. And you would think that we were living in like My Little Prairie days or like Little House on the Prairie days, and it's like it's crazy, but like we are so distracted, and we're distracted while we're driving, we're distracted walking down the street, that we just like bump into each other and collide into each other, and we've like forgotten manners and how to be polite and kind, and I totally see that.
Right?
Okay. This is not something that's new either. What can I ask? I mean, we're going off script now, as we do. But first of all, thank you, Dr. Kevin Patterson, for joining us
Yes.
here at our Design Meets Live studio recording. Finally launching soon.
Love it.
And very happy to, because it's also quite late in Hawaii. So thank you again
Yeah,
for joining us
really.
here. But going off script
Of
then,
course.
when your little bears were younger, there was none of this extreme smartphone stuff yet. So have you seen a gradual change into the addiction, I guess we'll call it?
I have. And because I remember, of course, like my generation, your generation, we didn't grow up with this. And so we've had to learn how to adapt to it in our life. And interesting enough, like the kids, my nieces and nephews, my kids, like they've taken my phone from age 2 and shown me shortcuts that I'm like, wow, you guys get the phone way quicker than we do. But at the same time, like, they carry phones to school now, and since COVID, for example, being so isolated from each other, that was their way to connect. And, they went to school online. They started social media accounts to keep in contact with their friends. They started getting their news online and, doom scrolling like the rest of us have done over the years. And it's just, from a psychologist standpoint, they just don't have the mindfulness, and they don't have the cognitive ability to be able to process all the information that's coming at them. And, like you and I can read articles, and depending on the day, we can read articles that are basically like 10 ways to lose 20 pounds. And if we're having a good day, it's like, this is bullshit. I don't need that. Like, I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm happy, and I don't care about the article. But then it can catch us on a bad day, and we're like, oh my God, I really do need to lose 20 pounds. What are these 6 ways I got to start today? And kids,
Were you following me
just don't
this
have
weekend?
that.
I feel like you were with me. Were you next to me?
Newsies and
Listen, I'm giving you a sneak peek into my own life. But like the kids, like they don't have the ability to process what it's like to hear messages that say you need to lose 20 pounds. All they hear is I'm not good enough.
Right.
And so it's like it does become these tools of mass destruction, because they don't have the life experience to learn what's a true source and what's a made up source, who has the authority to tell you you need to lose 20 pounds and who doesn't have the authority to tell you that. And so they are learning how to just take in so much information, and they use it to compete with each other. They use it to fight with each other, and they use it to compare their lives. And it's just, I don't know, I don't see a lot of healthiness coming from it. But at the same time, the equal and opposite good that it did was it did keep them connected with each other in a time when connection wasn't an option. So it is kind of a catch-22 that we haven't really right-sized. And from my observation since COVID, we haven't really right-sized from that.
Amen to
Yeah,
that.
right?
Well, I mean, that's kind of perfect with what he said, because it does kind of lead into the first question.
It does.
I look like Princess Leia or Bjork with it like that. Okay. It ruins my hair. Now, I just want to jump into the next one, because everything you've said is already in line and part and parcel of the therapy that you kind of walk. And I wondered, did you always feel like a little bit of a therapist? And I do want to get to the nitty gritty of how growing up the way you did might have shaped the way that you see the world and why you went this path.
Oh, 100%. I was raised as a little adult. My parents were teenagers when they had me, and so I don't think they realized what that meant. My mom was 17 when she got pregnant with me, and so they did the best they could with what they had, but the way that they pivoted is they just treated me like another kid in the house. And so like I got treated like a little adult from early on. And so I became everyone's confidant. And so I was that really weird kid that, in kindergarten, instead of going out to play with the other kids, I kept my teacher company at lunch, and I talked to her about her problems. And here I am, a little 6-year-old, and she's telling me her life story. And she's like, "You're just so easy to talk to." And I would get comments. It's true. I would get comments on my report cards that were basically like, "Yeah, he's not that great of a student, but man, he's a good kid. And if we had 20 like him, like everyone would feel listened to and seen and all this stuff." So,
Wow.
I barely passed high school, but I got like glowing remarks for being this person that made people feel safe. And so, honestly, in college, I just had to pick something that I knew that I could possibly finish college. And my fascination and my strengths were people. And so, being 18, I'm like, can I make a living being good at people? And that's when I learned, like, yes, the field of psychology is perfect for you.
Wow.
And so as I got into it, I started to realize, like, this is truly my gift to leave the world, is creating safety and helping people feel normal, and just like having the conversations that we're all so scared to have.
Wow. You are born for this. Literally, this was it.
It feels like a calling. It just
for
does.
sure. Oh, I think that's so exciting. I love that so much.
Well, wait a minute. Do you feel like your design psychology is part of your calling?
Well,
For helping
yeah,
others?
I do. So I have so much. I'm not a psychologist. I call myself a coach because it's not fair, right? I don't want people to be misled because I did not go to school for it. So design psychology coaching is what I do, what I love. But it's a very similar thing. I think if I could go back, I would get a psychology degree. I think it was really, really smart. Yeah, because I love it so much. The whys of design, not the how-tos. So I'm more interested in why people do what they do, what makes them feel a certain way in a certain space. So I'm sure that there's a lot of synergy there, because that when you're going through, and I've actually written a program with a school in California, right? So as you are doing what you do, then there's a certain point, as you know, in your practice where someone's surroundings will absolutely need to change. And whether it's painting the walls, cleaning out the rooms, there's a point where their physical space will need to change to help them along their journey. That's when I jump in. And it's so,
I love that.
It's so much fun. We're going to work together. I can feel it.
We are.
We
We are,
are.
because what's funny is I got to tell you, like, every space I go to, I have to make the vibe fit. And what's funny is my mother, she grew, like, as this is going to come out silly, but as my mom grew up, because I grew up with her,
Right.
she was an interior designer.
Okay.
And so she actually taught me a lot of, like, the idea of, like, the space that we're in elevates our moods, or it detracts from our moods.
Exactly.
And so I was, again, that weird kid that's like, I loved to meditate, and I've always loved to practice yoga, but I can't just practice yoga in a room like an athlete. For me, it has to be in the right mood. And so I will spend 30 minutes setting the mood to take a 30-minute yoga class, but that the room has to be good, and it has to feel good. And I firmly believe that that's the case. And, whenever I work with people and they're anxious and like anxiety is at the forefront, I always ask them, what kinds of subconscious things can we become aware of that are creating anxiety? Because you're only telling me about the things that you're consciously aware of. And so if people make you anxious or certain circumstances or situations make you anxious, let's like maybe look at the ways that you might not realize that you're being anxious. And it's things like, where do you sleep? Like is your sleep environment causing restless sleep, and maybe a lack of sleep is creating more anxiety in the day? Is your car messy and you spend a lot of time driving? And if you're driving in a trash heap, like let's clean the
That's
car out a little bit.
Right.
right.
And so, yeah,
You're speaking my language. I'm so happy. I'm doing a virtual tree monkey hug with you right now. I'm like holding on to you
I
right
love
now,
it.
like just yes. This is what we're talking
It's
about.
right before bedtime too.
I love it.
Yeah.
A few months ago, we spoke about a program that you had started called the Queer Men's Healing Circle, and not necessarily focusing on that, but I wanted to talk about if you could lay down the whys and the course of how that type of group therapy helps that community, this specific community, and is it okay to ask you about this odd conversion therapy
Of course.
thing that apparently happened in
Yeah.
university?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So I laughed the other night because I was like, you dug deep. You went into some deep stuff that I posted. That if it's kind of funny whenever people like remind you of things, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot if I wrote about that. So yes. Um, so let's start with the need for a group that I called the Queer Men's Healing Circle. And a lot of it was reclaiming the word queer. Like that's where it started, is, as a gay man, I've learned that there's so many words that feel so off limits and taboo, and even people asking like, am I allowed to say the word queer? And just like any word that you use to describe a group of people, it's like, well, what's your intention in using the word? Is if you're using the word to uplift the community, use the word. But if you're using the word to be derogatory or insulting, don't use the word. And so a lot of it was for like my age group, like those of us like, 40s, 50s, like reclaiming that word because that was a word that we grew up with being okay. And so that was the first piece of it. But the second was some men really liked having one-on-one sessions with me because they wanted to unpack some of their either coming out late in life, processing religious trauma, processing losing family members and friends once they came out, kind of what their second life now looks like. But then there was this moment that they all hit in sessions with me where they would say, do you work with any other men that have the same story, or am I the only one that experiences stuff like this? And I had to remind them, like, I work with dozens of people, and of the queer men I work with, 100% of us have a version of this story where, we were who we were before coming out. And then after coming out, there was this new version of us that was either highly celebrated or highly lonely. But regardless, we had to like put version 1.0 to rest so that version 2.0 could grow and develop. And so I realized like what these men need is to all kind of sit in a room and just say, I want to hear your story and I want to identify with other people to feel less alone, but to also hear how are you processing, being a queer man later in life, because I don't want to say that there are less or no problems anymore, but my kids come home from high school all the time and they're like, yeah, so and so is non-binary. And then the next day, nope, so and so is straight again. Nope, so and so is gay now. And like the kids today, at least where I live, they don't care. And like there's less stigma with it, that it's this weird age group that kind of got lost to where everyone did care whenever we came out, and everyone had a lot to say about when we came out. And we experienced lots of loss and lots of transformation, and it felt lonely and it felt like I had to hide. That this program was for this generation of queer men to say, stop hiding. Like, we're all in this together, and let's come back out and let's reclaim our lives again, and let's reclaim brotherhood, and let's just link arms and do this together. And it's been extremely powerful. And that's whenever I realized actually facilitating 3 cohorts of this group. In the second cohort, I realized that this man that I didn't know, like he found me, and he was talking about conversion therapy and how he experienced it in his church growing up. And what's fascinating is I didn't know that I had conversion therapy until I heard him tell his story.
Wow.
Wow.
And here I am, a psychologist leading this group, hearing this man talking about conversion therapy in the evangelical church. And as he's telling it, inside, like I'm doing that like lump in the throat moment where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to cry or get sick, or like just everything within me, just like the pit of my stomach just sank. And I realized like, holy shit, I was a part of like religious abuse and I didn't know it. And I'm a psychologist and I didn't know it. And I realized that I had blocked so much of it out. And when I went back to like reclaim that story and reclaim that part of me so that it didn't have power over my life anymore, that's when I realized like I was part of a very high control environment at the university level. And I remember having to sign a document saying that I would not engage in homosexual behavior, and questioning at the time
Wow.
and realizing that if I did, I was going to get expelled. And whenever I got busted for having relations with another man, instead of like hearing my story, I was given one ultimatum to go to a therapist of their choice. And it was this group called Exodus International that they brought into the university. And yeah, and like we all got to be part of this program. And at the time, it felt like we got to like pray the gay away. Like, you know what I mean? And as we went through this program, we started realizing how bad we were and how messed up we were,
that's so
and how
terrible.
at the time it was still, and at the time it was still part of the DSM, you know, what psychologists use to diagnose, you know, behavioral problems and personality disorders. And so at the time, we just felt incredibly broken and like we had to do this program. And I remember getting kicked out of the university, having to go back home, not passing the Exodus International stuff, still gay, and leaving feeling like I just completely failed. Like I failed college, I failed everything, I failed my life. And we're coming home and having a conversation with my family and realized my family was fine with me. And when I realized they realized how poorly my university handled it, that's when I kind of like stopped identifying with like evangelical Christian or Christianity. And that's when I started realizing like the church is doing a lot of harm to gay men and the LGBTQ population. And so that's whenever going into psychology full time, I realized that's a population that I care deeply about. But what's odd is because it was traumatic, I had pushed down the fact that I was part of it. And the reason why I feel so drawn to this community is it impacted me. And so that's where the Queer Men's Healing Circle came out of, is just kind of reclaiming my own story and saying, this isn't right. And we deserve better than that.
Incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So I just want to go. So
It's heavy, sorry.
It's so heavy,
Damn,
but
bastards.
you know what?
What college was that, please? Really
Yeah.
quickly, perdón.
He wants to call out the college.
It was, I know I feel guilty calling out the college, but it was in Indiana.
was
So
in
it was
Indiana.
Just a private Christian university in Indiana.
Mike
So
Pence's
Midwest.
state.
Yeah.
So we're not
Yes,
going to
and he was
politics
governor at the time.
because that's where he wants to go. We're not going to do it at the moment because that's a nut. That was the church was a lot. And
Indiana. We're not the South.
Yeah.
Why are we like this?
exactly.
Okay.
Here we go. I have a question because what I was listening to and when I was
Yes.
hearing, and because you also specialize with women, right? And so what I was hearing was this, because I've gone through it, and I think a lot of women go through it, and I think your mom went through it, is that you're leaving one thing that you know is your life, and then you're transitioning to another. So you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a this, right? You have these labels that you put on yourself.
Yes.
And then when your kids leave, or you get a divorce, or there's a major life change, you have to discover the second part of you, your second life, right?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
is that similar to what you do when you work with women as well?
It is. And what I've learned is there's a lot of crossover between queer men and women. And so, for example, like a few of these crossovers are, and all I can call it is just overextending yourself to be accepted and to be deemed like acceptable in the room. And so there's just watering yourself down. There's, you know, setting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. It's wearing hats to the point of exhaustion. It's having to chameleon your way into every circumstance so that you are deemed, you know, smart enough, your voice matters at the table. And at the end of the day, it's like we're exhausted from having to prove ourselves. And so that's something that queer men and women, struggle with. And these life transitions are very similar. So what you're talking about is like knowing that we go from big life transition to life transition, and both women and queer men have to process life transitions a little bit differently, because the expectations are either very high or very low. And what I mean by that is the expectations are both low for queer men because they expect us to fuck it up, or I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on like radio, but they expect us to like mess it up. They expect us to mess it up so that when we do, they can be like, that's why you don't deserve to get married. That's why you don't deserve to have kids. That's why you don't deserve to, be celebrated and have a Pride Month. That's why you don't deserve these things. But whenever we do rise to the occasion and we get to prove that we do deserve these things, we're having to overextend ourselves to prove our basic rights. And women have to do the same thing. And so it's a very similar parallel. With women, though, it's interesting because I grew up very close to my mother and my sister, and I watched them also struggle, with the idea that if I was ever with them, people listened to me more, and they didn't listen to them as much. And I learned that even walking down, we'd be at the shopping mall and we'd be walking down a mall hallway, and people would move out of my way, but they would bump directly into them. And it was just this like observation of you're physically not being seen, and emotionally you're not given the space to be seen. And nobody's stopping to ask, like, how are you feeling about these big life transitions? Because we just expect that women can play mother, can play CEO, can play cook, can play taxi driver, can play teacher's aide, can play all these roles to support their families, that we don't ever stop to say, you seem really tired and you've earned every bit of that. How can I help you?
Yeah.
The same way that we don't ever look at gay men and say, you don't have to try so hard. You're enough on your own. And so those are some of the parallels. And that's why I love working with women, because a lot of it is normalizing the burnout. And so again, I've gotten groups of women together for women's group coaching. And I just want to drop a grenade in the middle of the room and say, so let's talk about burnout. And they all are like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. All I want's a nap. And like, when you ask them, like, what are you so exhausted about? It's all the hats I have to wear. It's all of the thankless activities that no one ever acknowledges me for. It's the idea that I can say the exact thing in the boardroom that's going to save our company, but then a man says it and suddenly it's like, that's brilliant, let's do it. And it's like,
I just said
that kind of stuff. So that's why I love working.
Said that. I actually, I am a senior vice president of a company that is almost all women, and I love it. I love it because I love it. We have one guy who actually, he's the one who has to speak up to be heard over the women. And he's like, this is such a new dynamic for me. I love it so much working with you ladies because we talk about a different level. It's not about ego, but it's like the why of what we're doing is so much more important than how we're doing it. And he's mind blown actually at the way that we are processing things. And it's just it's been an interesting learning experience for all of us.
Something too, Miha, that you asked earlier, and Dr. Kevin, you mentioned the need to, you didn't say feign, but you put on this act to be more included, more where your voice is heard and things like that, where you have to do extra, you have to go above the call of duty if you're a gay man or a woman. Do you think that there is, again, off script, but that our heterosexual brothers often also put on this consistent facade of being a certain way that they are not? Because I truly believe that there's so many falsifications of who these men are. Many men are. Not just the gay community, obviously.
Yes, yes, and I would say I do see that. I'm just trying to think through how I would like quantify that, but I do see that. I do see that there's, in the break room, like we have personas and there's archetypes of men and women, that they almost have to play a character. And it's like, if I'm the CEO, I have to be the ball buster in the room. And it's like, do you want to be that? Or do you think that that's the archetype that you have to fit? And so I do see that they show up in ways where they still have something to prove. And it all comes down to like core wounds and things that they grew up with, not feeling enough, that they're finally in this power position. And some people, use power to lift other people up, and that's beautiful. But some people also use power to rectify their inner child and say, we've made it now. Everyone's going to pay for us feeling neglected. And so I do think that a lot of men do use their power in that capacity to keep other people either down or keep other people beneath them because they are compensating for things. So I do see that.
That's interesting. It's just fascinating to the human spirit, the human experience. It's just fascinating.
And the human psyche.
Everything, but just,
Well,
what makes us tick?
It is. And what's fascinating is I think I actually can answer this question because my dissertation that I wrote was about this. And so it was a super easy study, piece of cake study, that I wrote one email message that was delivering a tough message to an organization. And literally it was basically saying we didn't meet our profit margin. We're going to have to cut expenditures and we're also going to have to cut people. And so just be ready, but we didn't meet our target. And what I did was I had about 12, I think it was 12 to 15 women read the message, and I recorded their voice reading it. And I had 12 to 15 men read it, and I recorded their voice. And I played all of them into a blind study. And I just said, as I play each one of these, give me 1 to 3 adjectives of how you would describe, this person and the way that they communicated this message. Meanwhile, what's interesting is the groups didn't realize, like they were all in different rooms, that it was the same message. Like they didn't realize it was the same message. And like almost consistently, the men that read the message, they're like, even though it was a tough message, he delivered it with courage and his confidence in his voice. It sounds like I assume he probably gave them lots of chances and they didn't meet the expectation. And so he's just holding them accountable. And that was the consistent message of men reading it. Of women reading it, it was basically using words like, she seems very cold. She seems like she doesn't care about people. Did she have advisors? It doesn't seem like she was confident in her message. She didn't sound like she had advisors that helped her. And one even said, like, what a bitch. And like,
is that amazing?
In my mind, I'm just writing notes. Yep.
Amazing.
I'm writing notes, and it truly was just the perception of men and women in the workplace. And is there stereotypes on women in the CEO suite versus men in the CEO suite? And that was the modality I used.
Okay, I'm going to use this example when I go back on Monday. I'm gonna just have this conversation because we have a team meeting, and it's so interesting. Not that I know that there's an answer or an outcome because it affects the pitches that we do, right? Because we're a technology company. We're still talking and fundraising and meeting people, and we're running into it depending on who we're talking to, right? So if they're a man or a woman, it's an entirely different pitch, even though it is the exact same pitch. It goes differently. They respond differently. Questions are different. Everything is different, and it's so interesting. Oh my gosh.
And I guess it makes sense
to that
too.
Equity piece of like.
No, please.
No, I was just gonna say it goes back to that equity piece of like why it's so important to give women specific coaching and specific sessions, because this equity piece is something that men don't experience, and like really bolstering their life transitions and bolstering them, not having to overextend themselves, but really go back to what do you do really well, and let's own your native genius. Like that is women's work.
Native genius.
Native genius.
Yeah.
And that equity bit that you just mentioned, I mean, men don't have that because everything has been, for so much of the, historically, just given to them. Only this position was for you. Only you could study. Only you could. And I feel like it's grooved into our brains this way.
Right.
I wanted to ask you another question about a new venture that you're taking off that you mentioned to me last week. In working in Hawaii with the YMCA, of all, like you just starting this new contract, what are you going to be doing with the YMCA? And is it only in your region of Hawaii? And then we have to talk about your region of Hawaii too.
Yeah, of course. So it is the association that this is associated with. is the YMCA of Honolulu. And so it's on the island of Oahu, but we've got partnerships with all the YMCAs on the islands. And so it's a close network. And essentially I'm helping in their HR department. And so HR in an organization, a psychology background is perfect for HR because, they create people processes using, process mapping, using technology, using people. And it's really about, how do we make an organization more efficient through the work of people? But you can't just like tell people to do more. Like you have to create the space in which they want to do more. And so there's lots of psychology that go into it. And the YMCA, historically does good work in communities, especially in the United States. They do really good work in the communities for helping those with housing insecurity, helping those with food insecurity, keeping aging populations active and healthy, giving kids after school programs. Like they do good work. And Honolulu, specifically in Hawaii, the YMCA is such a cornerstone of what they do. Like my time living here, when I've surveyed like who's doing good work in Hawaii, like without fail, one of the first three organizations that were mentioned was the YMCA. And so whenever I started looking at how can I plug into the community of Hawaii and how can I give back to the community of Hawaii, I wanted to do it in a place where it would make the most difference. And that's whenever the YMCA found me. And it was like, beautiful, this is a win-win. I have a skill that I can help strengthen your workforce. And I believe in the work that you do. And I see the good work in Hawaii for the people of Hawaii. Let's do it.
Love that. Let's talk about where you are in Hawaii and some. I mean, why there? Why did you choose that location for yourself?
So actually, during the pandemic, my mother, she's a huge risk taker. And so I grew up in Arizona for most of my life. And we all were in Arizona. And my mother just, in the middle of the pandemic, just flat out said, I've realized if I'm going to get stuck at home, I hate the heat and I don't want to live here anymore. And she said, I've always wanted to live on an island by the beach and I'm going to do it. And are you ready for this? Literally like a month later, her and my stepdad are in Hawaii and just did it. Took a leap, just did it, restarted their lives. And so once all of our travel bans lifted over here, we were able to go visit them. And it was my first time actually seeing this island. And so I don't know how to explain it other than the moment that we landed, just the way that the weather felt, just the aloha spirit and the vibe. It's a real thing. Like all I can tell you is it's palpable. You can feel the aloha on these islands. They are so magical. And the second we landed, I was like, I've never felt anything so good in my entire life. And so the time we spent there, it's the only place that I've ever left, because typically I'm the person on vacation that has big goals and I want to stay for 10 days and then day 3, I'm ready to go home. When I was here, we were here for 2 weeks over our holiday break over Christmas, and it's the only place I've ever cried leaving and was just like, I don't want to leave. Like I could stay here for the rest of my life, just send my stuff and I'm good. So we visited several more times, and coincidingly, my mother has a pretty strong health challenge. Cancer runs in my family. And so my mother she has a brain tumor. And so she was going through a series of operations. And we just made the decision too, like through the pandemic, we realized in the United States, like it's important to be around family and to be with the people that you love in a place that you love. And so we decided we love going there to visit. Let's just move there and support her through this health journey. And made sure my kids were on board because they were in the middle of, middle school and high school, and they were up for it. And so we just took the plunge.
Oh, I love that so much. My daughter did her first semester in Hawaii. We spent a lot of time there because my mom loves it too. It's her place. It's her place. She's not making the move, but she goes as much as she possibly can. I mean, we kind of get the leap thing. That's how Barcelona was for me. I would cry when I landed and cry when I leave. And I was like, okay, I need to just move. I'm like your mom. I just did it. I was like, I'm done. I'm taking the dogs. I'm packing 2 suitcases, and I just moved. I'm here, right? And so,
same here.
Yeah,
It was
we get it. We get it. It speaks to you.
It just,
right?
It does. And like, I live back up in the mountains, and like, it's a funny place where like in So our two big cities on this island are Honolulu and Waikiki. And when I'm in Waikiki, that's kind of the fun tourist. It feels like a little mini version of Las Vegas.
Yeah,
And, every time
it
I'm in
does.
Waikiki, it's so rewarding to overhear people talking about how this is the best day of their life and you live here and I live here. And it's like I love living in a place where people are like, it doesn't get any better than this. And inside I'm like going, I know it doesn't. It's like, this is amazing and I live here. And so it's one of those places where I can tell you when I come down off of the mountain where I live, every day I look at the mountain and I'm like, oh my God, I am so grateful for this. And every day that I get to see the water, it's like it never gets old. I don't ever take the water for granted. And it my spirit has just been like healed and like reset, and being with family again is just like, it's just beautiful. And so there's something captivating about this island and all the other islands. If you've ever been to Maui, it's beautiful.
Well,
If you've
I
been to
have.
Hawaii, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yes.
it's all just, they all have their own vibe and they're all perfect.
Well, I love that you're there, that you're with Ohana, and you're loving it. And
I'm here with Ohana.
yep, and it's that's a great.
It's following. Last night I was at a play, and the actress who created this is Hawaiian, and the last thing she did, it was an homage to her mother, and it's brutally honest. And she did a Hawaiian dance
I
to
love
a
it.
song that I can't sing it right now, but it ends with "May our paths cross again." It's a very famous song in Hawaii, and
Yes.
it was. I mean, people were sobbing
Yes.
in the thing, sobbing.
It's
You
so
could feel it.
beautiful. The dance is beautiful. The people are beautiful.
dance is beautiful.
Oh, it is. I love it too. Oh, it's so fun. I'm so excited now to go. I hope to put my
Yes.
arms around you if we do get to go. You mentioned this before, and I like to ask people this because it's psychology, right? But you were talking about creating your meditation space, but where do you get the most creative vibes? Where do you feel like your brain opens and you just start thinking? Where is that space for you? Because I love to ask people that question. When you create a space, where is that?
So two places.
Okay.
So I've got two places. My number one is here in Hawaii. We call our patios lanai. So it's a lanai. And the lanai that I'm sitting on right now is half indoor, half outdoor. And so when I look out over my window, I see the mountain going this way, that when it rains, there's waterfalls. And I literally see it
Oh, my
outside of my
nerves.
window. But then when I look in the distance, about a mile or two in the distance, I can see the ocean. And so I can see the ocean. And on days of high tide, I can see the waves crashing and I can see the water. Like, it's just magical. And so I've created this space in my office where I've got a yoga area with my singing bowls. I've got a whole little area of plants that I'm growing. I've got my desk space. I've got my chair where people sit for sessions.
It's
I
paradise.
lead
Yeah.
meditations
It's paradise.
off this chair. It's just, so I've created this space when I walk out into it, I can automatically just taken to another world and my creativity flows. And then in my yard, to be honest, the grass is so lush here that actually just feeling the connection to the earth is just perfect. So I'll take a meditation cushion and just go sit in the grass with my bare feet in the grass, and that's where I feel very creative too.
Oh, I love it so
Great
much.
answer.
See? And it's so funny
Great
because you've
answer.
described it and people know that feeling when you put your bare feet on grass. There's something about that connection, the ground.
Feeling.
It's grounding.
Straight up. I agree.
right?
I've always agreed.
But
I love
I'm there.
jogging and grass.
You can feel it though. Like right now,
Yeah.
my
Not
chemistry
sand, though.
changed. I can feel my literally blood pressure, everything just go like this, thinking about walking in lush grass. Like we know how that feels because it makes such an impact on us. Like at any time in our
does.
lives,
Folks
right?
get to nature. I think that's
That's what you're saying, but it's true. In sand, I feel the same way. I know you know how that feels when you put your feet right at that sand and right at the water line. Oh my gosh. Everybody knows how that feels.
she's gonna get out of the studio and go
I'm
do
leaving.
that right
I'm going
now.
straight to the beach.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, Dr. K, and you need to get some rest, sir. Thank you so much for this.
yeah.
Is there anything, if there's any little
Yes.
message that you'd like to impart to the audience, maybe a word of encouragement, what would you tell them?
Oh, I love it.
What would you tell them?
You know, I know how that feels because it makes such an impact on us. Like at any time in our lives, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for this. Is there anything, if there's any little message that you'd like to impart to the audience, maybe a word of encouragement, what would you tell them?
You know, I love this question, and every time I get asked this question, the first thing that always just comes up in my spirit is I remind every one of my clients frequently, you are not broken. Just I feel like when clients come to me, they want to tell me their story of brokenness, and I like to reframe it and remind them, you're not broken, you just forgot parts of yourself. And so our work is to remember. And so part of this remembering and reclaiming work, you're going to see you had it all along, and you are the medicine. You are whole on your own. You're not broken.
Oh,
Lovely. Thank you so much
great.
for that.
Thank you so much for joining us. That was wonderful.
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Patterson, get some rest. So thank you so much. Our paths will cross on one of these two sides. Okay.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Well, in true Hawaiian spirit, mahalo.
Mahalo, aloha, and thank you so much, brother. Talk to you
my
soon.
pleasure.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Chabalo. Well, folks, there we go.
That was great.
Oh.
I adore him. Oh,
Stop
are you going to
ruining
get
my
rid of these?
hair. Yeah. Stop ruining my hair. Oh, Dr. Kevin, thank you so much. It's always a few months ago, we had him on my private show, and it was the same thing. Little Terry, he was born in West Texas, too. And his
really?
parents were pastors.
Wow.
You know what? I can't even. We've got
You
so much more to
relate.
do. We'll have Dr. K back again next year.
He was fantastic. We're just gonna remember everything you do in life is designed by you for you. So when you start to see your
Darn
world as
tootin'.
something you're designing, I mean, what happens? Everything changes and it brings a whole new perspective to your life.
And remember, folks, you are your best friend and you're not broken, to
I
reiterate
love
what
that.
Dr. K just said. We'll be back next time for more goodness for your ears and eye holes. Until then, keep loving yourself. Keep yourself as happy as you can. It might be raining if you're here in the city this week, so keep dry. And design your life that way, kiddos, because it's all about you and others. And until the next episode of Design Meets Life, bye. Take care, everybody. Ciao, ciao.